Psalm 82 is a really interesting psalm because there's some confusion about what exactly it means, and it's some parts that are hard to interpret. It starts right away in verse 1 with this source of some confusion. It says this: God has taken his place in the divine council. In the midst of the gods, he holds judgment. Okay, so reference to other gods, divine council. What's this psalm talking about? Is this psalm telling us, apart from the rest of Scripture, that in reality there are many gods, not just the one? No, it's actually quite the opposite. This psalm is revealing that the God of Israel is the one true God. So who's it referring to when it says this divine council and these other gods? Well, you basically have two options. It's either earthly rulers and authorities, and there's some reason to believe that. In verse 7, it says this, speaking to those authorities: nevertheless, like men you shall die and fall like any prince. So it might be referring to these earthly authorities and saying people might consider them gods, but they're not. They're men, and they're going to die just like every other man does. The other option is to believe that the voicing of this psalm is sort of speaking for the nations and referring to their various gods, leaders, authorities, spiritual symbols, whatever it might be, and calling them gods or a council of gods. Kind of just a creative depiction, and then it's showing the God of Israel being over and authoritative over this group. So I think no matter how you spin it, whether you just see this as being earthly authorities or divine authorities in the eyes of other nations, it's still really powerful. It's showing that the God of Israel is the one true God over these other authorities. One other cool thing to point out is in verse 3, and it's a great contrast. This God who is so powerful that he's over all these other ideas of authority and religious worship, if you will, who does he care about? Verse 3, give justice to the weak and the fatherless. Maintain the right of the afflicted and the destitute. Rescue the weak and the needy. Deliver them from the hand of the wicked. So how cool is that? This God who is so high, who does he care about? The low, the weak, the needy. And what's really amazing is in the gospel, we believe that we are among that group. It doesn't have to do just with your financial, your socioeconomic status, but your spiritual status is we were all bankrupt. We all came poor and needy as beggars before the throne of grace. Thankfully, this God cares about those people. And so he gives us his only son, John 3:16. All we have to do is believe in him, and he accomplishes all of the work he has. He gives us his righteousness. He takes upon himself our sin, and this is the gospel. So read this psalm. Don't get caught up in the controversy. You won't solve the interpretation no matter how many commentaries you read. But see what it's saying. This God is high and lifted up, and he cares about the broken, and that we too are to care about those same individuals in our society, and we're to see ourselves among them spiritually, and that is how we come to Christ. So I hope that blesses you guys. See you next time.